Pop goes the weasel. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. It's good to see y'all. Quick little video today on percents. We're moving away from proportions for now, and we're going to tackle skill 9 percents. Okay. So the big idea that I wanted to tackle today is just the idea of part of a number, right? We've looked at this a bunch of different ways so far. The biggest way was fractions, right? Skill 2 dealt with parts of numbers from the point of view of fractions, right? So if we take a look here, we split this into 2 parts. One of them is shaded green. We can write this fraction as 1/2. Another way that we've seen this is also, my clicker's not working. This is with decimals, right? If we take this fraction, we do 1 divided by 2, we get 0.5, right? This same picture can be represented with that fraction 1/2 and the decimal 0.5, and then the way that we're going to be looking at it today with percents, right? 50% of this circle is shaded green, and all 3 of these things, 1/2, 0.5, and 50%, are all ways to show that we have this much of this circle represented. Okay, so in your boat books, I need you guys to go ahead and get those things out and open. Let's see, I need on the left-hand column percent, and on the column we're going to add some notes. Okay, so percent is kind of, if we look at the parts of this word cent, how many cents are in a dollar? How many years are in a century? All those things, it's 100, right? So that's why percent is just a way to show something out of 100, okay? So percent is part of, right? And it's out of 100. Okay, so 100% is the whole thing. 0%, that's none of it. And then all the numbers in between show us part of that whole. Okay, it can also be written, we already talked about this, as a fraction. Example, if we have, let's try a different one. Let's do 25%. Okay, 25% is 25 parts out of 100, which is the same thing as 1/4. So 1/4 and 25% are the exact same thing. They're just different ways to show it. And then the other way that we can see this is as or as a decimal. Calculator, 25 divided by 100 or 1 divided by 4, those both give you 0.25. Okay, so a percent is a way to show part of a whole out of 100, right? So it kind of like takes this idea and makes it really streamlined. So it's easy to compare 25% of this with 50% of this, right? We can kind of compare because it's always out of 100. Okay. Go ahead and get these in your boat books. We're going to do a couple practice problems here, and we're going to start pretty slow today. The first one that I need in your boat book is going to be 20% of 60. Okay, so what number represents not the whole thing, but only about 20% of 60? And these problems today are going to be pretty straightforward, and there are a ton of different ways that we can solve this. But the wording can get kind of confusing with percent problems. So before I even start this problem, I like to think through kind of what answer I would expect. Okay, so 20% is less than 50%, right? So the number we're expecting here is going to be less than half of 60, okay? Does 1 make a ton of sense? Probably not, right? It's going to be somewhere less than, half of 60 is 30, so it's going to be less than that half because we have only 20%, but it's going to be some number like probably in the 20s, the teens, few different ways we can do this. Before we look at those, though, I want to go back to this picture that we looked at a minute ago, because doing math with percents doesn't always make sense, okay? It actually is a lot easier to work with decimals, and it's a lot easier to work with fractions. So the first thing that can be helpful to us is to take this percent and to turn it into one of those 2 things, okay? So 20% can be written as a fraction, right? 20 is the number, and it's percent out of 100, right? 100 pennies in a dollar, 100 years in a century, all those things, okay? The other way that we can write this is as a decimal. And so there's a little shortcut here. One way to do this is to do 20 divided by 100, which is 0.20. If you do that, you'll get that. And so there's also a shortcut here that hopefully you'll be able to see. We started with 20 and we 0.20. Okay, so basically we can take our percent, and to turn it into this decimal number, we're going to take our decimal point and we're going to move it over 2 spots. Okay, so basically what we've done here is we've started with this percent, 20%, and we've turned it into either a fraction, 20 over 100, or into a decimal, 0.20. Okay, and so if we want to find the 20% of 60, we can do it a couple different ways, and we're going to get the same answer both ways. We are going to basically just multiply our 20% either as 20 over 100 or as 0.20, and we're going to multiply that times the number that we care about here, which is 60. Okay. And if I grab a calculator here, and I do 20 times 60, okay, here is 12, okay? This one, the math is a little faster, okay? So I like working with decimals a lot, but it works with the fractions too, okay? We talked about in skill 2 how we can multiply a fraction times a whole number. We just need to make our whole number into a fraction too. 60 divided by 1 is still 60. I haven't changed anything, okay? So if I want to do the fractions, that's totally fine too. 20 times 60 is 1. Deal with my denominator. 100 times 1 is 100. Okay, and same thing here when I divide these. I also get 12. Okay, and this is the correct answer, but let's go back and double check. Remember, I'm trying to find 20% of 60. I know my answer is going to be less than half of 60, right? Half is 30. And did I get a number that makes sense here? Yeah, I think I did. Okay, on the next slide, there's going to be another problem that I would like you guys to try in your notes. Make sure you've got this. Practice doing it with fractions, with decimals. I'd like to see both ways in your boat book. And then we'll come back together with another video to kind of walk through and make sure you got the right answer. Okay, all right.